Hi all, let's look at another amazing game from the World Cup. Levon Aronian playing against Vassily Ivanchuk in round 5. C4 by Levon Aronian, the English opening. E6, G3. One of the basic ideas is to control that central D5 square. D5, Bishop G2. Now, actually already a slightly interesting decision. D takes C4 was played. Quite often this has been tried and tested. Just knight F6 and say knight F3. You can see that black is passive but is not releasing central tension, and well, up until this moment where black safely castled and now can consider D takes C4. In this game we have Ivanchuk playing D takes C4. Okay, now we have this check, queen takes C4, and now B5. Now, although this has been played before, perhaps it's slightly more dangerous, this position, because you can see this diagonal is quite dangerous. If white is playing on that C file and wants to play D4, D5, this could be like targets, these pawns over here. We have bishop B7, and black is not quickly castling here. Knight F3. Now in this position, knight F6 would seem to represent an urgency for casting. For example, D4, knight BD7 here, and maybe C5 is possible in this position. This kind of position seems safe enough. But in the game we have knight D7, so again it's a queenside piece being used, not a kingside. All of these kingside pieces not used yet. And now we have knight C3, rook C8, white castles, A6, again not moving any of the kingside pieces, D4, but black's idea is to be able to play C5 here. This is a very interesting moment though. This position maybe within Levon Aronian's preparation. He was playing his opening moves pretty quickly, and in fact he plays a very, very interesting move here. I wonder if you can guess it if I give you 5 seconds starting from now. Okay, the move is D5, and it seems at one level a bit crazy to give away a big central pawn, but with the king in the center and none of these pieces developed, this is quite dangerous. The first thing to note, black shouldn't really give up the light square bishop. This didn't happen. Black took with the pawn here. If he takes with the light square bishop, I'll give you an example. Knight takes, rook D1, E4. This position, white's light square bishop, is very dangerous. For example, bishop H3, A4, and all the light squares in black's position are kind of, well, a lot of them are vulnerable. This kind of position is very, very nice for white. You can see even E6 and knight G5 has been major threats. So black can't really give up that light square bishop. And it's difficult to imagine leaving D takes E6 available. So E takes D5, and the point is knight H4. Now this kind of idea was used by Garry Kasparov against Queen's Indians, which we've covered on this channel in the past, this D5 and knight H4. And it often gives a very aggressive knight square on F5, of course, but it unveils that pressure, that pin of the D5 pawn against the bishop. And yeah, it looks a little bit awkward for black. If we just, yeah, Vassily Ivanchuk took a long time here. I think actually about an hour to come up with knight D F6. Yeah, I think he took an hour here. If we look at this position, if knight E7, rook D1, this is very dangerous. Knight B6, A4. This kind of thing is very dangerous. You know, black's development is inhibited. And knight G-F6, I guess the issue which Ivanchuk didn't really want, Well, there's a few. There's knight f5 available. There's e4 available potentially for this d file. But knight f5 clearly, as an example, puts pressure on g7. So yeah, a lot of thought was spent to come up with what looks to be basically an awkward looking move. Yeah, knight d f6. It's not doing that much for development again. Again, these three, the castling is a long way away. But the idea is unveiled now, g6. Yeah, which covers the f5 square clearly. But knight takes d5 now, which gets that piece back with a few more lines open, especially this e file is potentially open now. So that's a clear and present danger for the black king. But the idea here is not knight e7 but knight f6 to welcome a check, which was played. And here now, if queen e7, I think white just takes here and then d6 would win that bishop. So king f8, and white stands better. Black's king is not in a great place with the rook on h8 here. a4 starting to put pressure on these pawns on the queen side. b4, and now bishop e3. Yeah, that pawn seems a bit vulnerable. Queen d6. Rook ac1, putting more pressure on c5. c5 is the major exploitable target, it seems, at the moment. Knight d7. Just to give you an example of an alternative, if king g8, bishop h3 hitting the rook, this is a pleasant position. Yeah, c5 is still vulnerable. White can build some pressure, but let's not explore that too much. Okay, so rook ac1, knight d7, knight just goes back to f3 here simply, with an idea that knight d2 or knight g5, if the knight goes to e4, it'll be hitting c5 as well as the queen with tempo. So very, very dangerous. Black covers the possibility of knight g5, but not this other way, knight d2. So the knight can go to that massive central square, hit the queen with tempo, and also c5. And this happens, king g8, knight e4. Queen drops back, but now d6 disconnecting the queen from c5. So a horrible position, and in fact so horrible Ivanchuk resigned. Yeah, he didn't play this out. I'll give you an example. Well, c5 is clear. Look at white's position. It's totally harmonious with c5 under fire, basically. It looks like an absolutely nasty position to be in. As an example, if black gives up the light square bishop and plays a5 to protect that pawn, which is under scrutiny, then something like bishop b7, and then white can just take on c5, and it's not possible ever to take on d6 because of rook c8, and this pawn's dropping next. So this would just represent a totally hopeless scenario. Yeah, it basically seems, let's go back to the final position. Ivanchuk didn't really get a good position at the opening. He was kind of in a very difficult position from the opening sequence. He really didn't get to play today, basically, to show his great skills, unfortunately. But yeah, a good bit of preparation and a fantastic dynamic pawn sacrifice in its own right, though. D5, which really questions black's opening sequence. In fact, so I think the opening needs to be revisited there. Okay, I hope you got something from that. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.